And we are live late night reaction to the second fight card here on the Charlo doubleheader pay per view. And we have a new unified super welterweight champion as Jermell Charlo scores the KO win over Jason Rosario with a double jab at the beginning of the round, man. And I guess this is the one where I kind of like picked. I picked Jason Rosario to get the win, but it was Jermell Charlo there, staying on his back foot, just waiting to see what Jason Rosario was going to do. He threw a lot of his punches with a lot of conviction there, waiting to see what Jason Rosario was going to do. And, over the course of those rounds, you saw that the power that he had behind his shots was a little bit too much for Jason Rosario, as he was able to score 2 knockdowns earlier in the fight. And then, at the beginning of that last round there, he comes in with a double jab to the body and puts Jason Rosario down, and Rosario just didn't have enough to get up. They show that these scorecards 67-64 for Charlo 2 times, and then 66-65 or something like that. So with those 2 knockdowns, and let me see, it's actually 66-65 Charlo from C. Weisfeld up until that particular point. So you have those 2 knockdowns, and Rosario was pretty much having the majority of the rounds up to that point. And that was just something where, I just kind of felt like, that he could have done something, but I just did not see much power coming out of, Jason Rosario in that fight. So, while Jason Rosario was scoring punches in that bout, you really didn't see much where Jermell Charlo was in trouble. And I thought that would be the case here in this particular bout. Jermell Charlo kind of like put it to the instance where he wasn't really in that much trouble. They're going, back over it. First round, like I said, left hand, that caught the temple, put down Rosario in the first round. Then he got in there, and like I said, in close quarters, got caught with another hook, and then you have that, like I said, the double jab that put down Jason Rosario right there. One up near, the middle part, and then one right in the solar plexus to put Jason Rosario down, and Jason Rosario couldn't really get up. Like I said, the basic story there, Rosario would say banana, and that was basically the thing there, was that he just didn't have enough there to get this win. So Jermell Charlo is now the WBC, WBA, IBF and Ring Magazine Super Welterweight Champion. I know that this is something that um, this is something that is to the delight of one particular person that is a frequent caller on the podcast and through many of these live, um, many of these lives that we do have here. Um, and I'm sure that, we will talk about this, later. What is it? It's going to be in another 18 hours or so. Um, so, oh man. And this is, something like some people are saying that Rosario took a dive. I'm like, nah, I don't see it as being a dive because, up until this particular point, like he was already, down twice. He was already down twice. Something that he really had to catch up with. So it was a lot to a lot for him to get back on up to that point. But that double jab just showed that that Charlo was, like I said, more into this particular fight. Was patient in various points of the fight. Really didn't give Rosario that much to say that he was in any type of issues there against Rosario. So he's. I feel like he kind of did fairly well, even though it seemed like Rosario was tagging him a little bit. It wasn't to the point where I would say that Jermell Charlo was in that much trouble because, a lot of people were looking for Rosario to have like power shots, but I really didn't see that coming out of him in this fight. I saw like a lot of arm punches coming from Jason Rosario. You didn't really see anything where he kind of threw anything with a lot of conviction. I saw that out of Jermell Charlo in this particular fight. Even though he was fighting off of his back foot, and over the course of rounds, I was saying like with Rosario not really throwing with that much power behind him, and with some instances where he could have, with Charlo, he could have like been a little bit more, aggressive as far as like coming, on his front foot and walking forward and walking forward. I said right before this particular knockout that if he was a little bit aggressive, I didn't think that Rosario would be able to take that pressure. And it didn't even take that. All it took was him, one jab, one left jab, pretty much around the chest area of Rosario, and then one jab to the solar plexus with pretty much a lot of conviction. So it had like a lot of power behind that punch, and it just took all of the air out of Jason Rosario. Jason Rosario couldn't get up from that, and that's where you have, Jermell Charlo as the unified champion with 3 of the 4 major belts, but with the Ring Magazine Championship. And that's gonna be something because if y'all watched the fights last week, there was a main event there last week with someone that Jermell Charlo has already defeated. And oh man, this is not looking good because Erickson Lubin, who got beat in the first round by Jermell Charlo, did score a win over Terrell Garcia to become a top ranked contender, for one of those belts. But now that Jermell Charlo has has those unified titles, we're not. I don't see people being very interested in a rematch being made between Jermell Charlo and Erickson Lubin. That's not going to be much of you know a good fight there. You do have Erislandy Lara as a regular champion by the WBA. You still have Jared Hurd, former unified champion, out there. And you do have Julian J. Rock Williams. So I would rather see Jermell Charlo against the likes of a Jared Hurd or Julian J. Rock Williams, or if there was like any way to fight to share, which won't happen, then for him to fight Erickson Lubin once again. That's what I got out of this particular matchup is that you had Jermell Charlo be kind of like more patient in this particular bout because it didn't seem like he was the more or the bigger guy in this instance. So that's how we kind of like got this particular thing here where he kind of fought on his back foot, waited to see what Jason Rosario was going to do. The thing about that is with Jason Rosario, although he was throwing a few combinations and things like that, nothing with, like I said, nothing with very much power behind it for them to kind of like say that, kind of say that he was having Jermell Charlo in trouble in this particular bout. We got a great little question here. let me add my Grady on here, but Terrell. Will the Charlo brothers ever escape your depiction of them as the Eagles of Okay. All right. We'll find out tomorrow if they escape the depiction of being amigos of boxing. But we got Mike Grady here with us right now, man. What's going on, Mike?
Not much. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Just supported this fight card. Wanted to see what was going on with the Charlo brothers. They both were successful in their fights, with Jermell Charlo being successful against Sergey Derevyanchenko with a unanimous decision, and we just see here what happened with Jermell Charlo getting that KO victory right there. So I actually before this particular bout, I was leaning towards Rosario because I thought that Jermell Charlo would be more susceptible to shots, but he kind of like fought off his back foot, waited to see what Rosario was going to do, and with that being said, he just was patient enough to let Rosario do what kind of like throw what he was throwing, and just took him out in like 8 rounds at the beginning of the 8th round there. I was saying before that you got on that Jason Rosario was throwing punches, but nothing with, as much conviction as Jermell Charlo. Really, didn't see, a lot of power behind his punches. So with that being said, you really didn't see that Jermell Charlo had that much issue going over those rounds. So while he was able to score, like that first round knockdown and then the 7th round knockdown, it just seemed like he was more patient over the course of the fight, and like that Rosario wasn't going to be able to do that much against him. And I felt like because Rosario didn't really have that much behind his punches, that if Jermell Charlo was aggressive starting in round 8, then he could overwhelm Rosario and get the win. But it really didn't have to take that. All it took was just 2 jabs, and that was it. So that's pretty much what I had on that fight.
I see it a bit different. I feel that Rosario was, if not winning the fight, it was a very close fight. And I feel that the body language of Charlo showed me that even though it didn't look like Rosario was throwing hard shots in terms of like the velocity, the speed at which Charlo was throwing, they were still heavy shots, which was moving him and dictated him to get on the back foot. Because at what fight do we know him to get on the back foot other than somebody hitting him and hurting him? The only fight I can recall in recent memory is the last Harrison 2, where Harrison went forward and was landing big shots, and that's the first time we seen Jermell Charlo step back. And in that fight, Harrison was dang near winning that fight until he got clipped by Charlo. Mm-hmm. I feel Rosario, like they said, you take away the knockdowns, this is a close fight. This is a competitive fight where Rosario is throwing more shots, he's landing more shots, he's leading the action. But you're right, Charlo was very patient, and he used what he could in terms of like when to open up. So I guess that's a different wrinkle versus him just throwing every shot he can and just throw, which he couldn't do that because when he first did that in the beginning, Rosario hurt him. And you saw in the first couple rounds when they was exchanging shots and he was going blow for blow with Rosario, he had to cut that out because Rosario got heavy hands and his stamina, he wasn't going to stop in terms of his stamina. And I could just see that about him, that he was going to keep going. Charlo did what he needed to do in terms of controlling the distance and making, Rosario come to him and just landed that pretty good shot in terms of the only real knockdown I feel like that happened other than, both of the last 2 knockdowns was real. I'm not saying that they weren't. But the first knockdown, like he hit him and might even hurt him, but his foot went out the ring, and then that's when he lost his footing. He could have been hurt, but what I saw was his foot get hurt, and he got up pretty easily in terms of it being more closer to a flash knockdown. The second knockdown was like, okay, you caught him with the left hook. Okay, you got him with the right hand after that. Okay, he doing the stank leg. Good knockdown. The third knockdown, he knocked the wind out of this guy, and it's no fun getting the wind knocked out of you, man. It's no fun at all. And the dude gasping for air. I'm wondering if his rib broken. I'm just like, is the guy okay? And then you saw the response of Jermell Charlo when he was like, yeah, we got it. Yeah, good knockdown at the end. And he was like, is this dude about to die in the ring? Because that's what I started thinking, like, well, damn, is this dude like is this something super serious? And he knocked the wind out of him, but I think he would have started getting more cleaner shots and stuff. But Rosario was winning the landscape, man. Rosario was throwing more shots and was dictated. Okay, depending on how you look at it, the Matador versus the Bull. Rosario was bullying him. He wasn't cutting off the ring as well as he probably could have, but he was dictating the action. He was throwing more shots. He was landing more shots. And Charlo was kind of like, biding his time, moving, et cetera, et cetera. Charlo was not dictating where the fight went. He was in the sense that he was like, okay, you're not going to catch me here. Oh, you need to follow me. Pow, pow, let me do that. But in terms of the person who was like dictated in the sense that their aggression was showing, I just feel like Rosario was winning the fight, man. Outside of the knockdown. He wasn't winning the fight because of those knockdowns, but I'm saying in terms of action, in terms of like just taking away the knockdowns, which is not an honest assessment, because what happened in the fight was he got all them knockdowns. But take away the knockdowns, he was winning the action of the fight. That's just how I feel. It's like Charlo taking lows, the same way Harrison was able to hit him with shots and like make the fight competitive. That's exactly what was happening now. Somebody was outworking him.
Yeah. I mean, I think with in this particular fight, when I was like watching after the fight and I saw what the judges' scorecards were, one of them, basically had it to where it was close to the point where the knockdowns were the difference. If Charlo didn't have those knockdowns, it would be Rosario with the majority of the rounds in the fight. The other two, I think the other two judges may have had it like 1 point. They had it 1 point ahead for Charlo before that eighth round. So that showed like how close the bout was on the scorecards. But yeah, those knockdowns were the difference. And I think that once Jamel scored that knockdown in the seventh round, that kind of really took a bit off of Rosario. Because even though he was like up and he was like, let's go, let's go, it was at the end of the round, and then when he was walking back to his corner, he still had his legs a little bit wobbly. He leaned. He ended up being on one side of the ropes before he even got to his corner. So like he was in a little bit of trouble, and that's when I kind of like felt like after that round, I said if Jermell Charlo was aggressive starting in that eighth round, then he could, finish off Rosario. But yeah, like I said, all it took was those two jabs, and that did him in. So, so he gets that win there, and you do see like the flaws in Jermell Charlo. Like I've kind of like said, but right now, him being at the top of the 154-pound division, I don't know what else is out there for him, except for maybe a fight with Jarrett Hurd. That's the only fight that I see right now.
So you don't think J-Rock can beat him?
I don't think so. I don't even know what J-Rock is going to be at right now, since him and Breadman aren't in the same camp. So not only do you have like Jarrett Hurd with another trainer, but you're going to have J-Rock with another trainer when he gets back in the ring. So I don't know like what the status is of J-Rock right now before he, steps into the ring once again at 154 pounds. But
I think the matchup between Rosario and Charlo, he matched up better with Charlo. Even though Charlo might knock him out as well, he matched up better with Charlo because just the way Rosario fight, it's like Jarrett Hurdish, but his stamina is there and he has a better skill than Jarrett Hurd.
Better skill. It's like better skill or better defense, or like coming off of what that J-Rock fight. And I really didn't get much out of Hurd's latest fight that he had when he came back. I thought that he still had those tendencies where he blocks a few of them punches with his face, but like he has to learn how to like parry punches or come up with some serious counters there for him to do some damage. But when he went up against Francisco Santana, it was like he was like working on trying to combine defense with offense, and that's not quite what Jarrett Hurd has been about. So I know that you're trying to learn some new tricks there, and he was able to knock down Santana in that last round, but I think that he still has a little bit more to go in order to try to say that okay, I'm ready to try to contend for world titles again. So it'll be some time to see what would be next for Jermell Charlo with those three belts, because unless if he fights Arslan De Lara, who's a regular champ, but one thing is I don't want to see him against Erickson Lubin again. Eric Lubin's performance last week, like he really didn't show anything to the point where he needs to be contending or fighting for a world title once again. Like if he can't really take out Terrell Gausha, and if he got hit a few times by Terrell Gausha in that second half of that fight, he should not step into the ring against Jermell Charlo again. That would not be a good look for him at all.
I agree.
So the bouts that were part of that particular card, you had the thing there with Daniel Rahman against Juan Carlos Payano, where Daniel Rahman gets unanimous decision win like 8-4 all across the board. That kind of like took, if you're going to say that he won, that's fine, but not 8-4. There's like Payano did way too much in the first half of that fight to where like Daniel Rahman had to do some work in the second half of the fight to catch up. And it was just that, maybe the last 3 or last 4 rounds, you could probably, get to Daniel Rahman. But by the end of that particular fight, I felt like Daniel Rahman had it to where it could be like 6 rounds to 6. And then you had that last punch at the end of the fight where he would have had a knockdown. That should have been scored as a knockdown, but it wasn't. And I thought that would have been the difference in the fight. But when the scorecards read, it was 8-4 all the way through for Daniel Rahman. So it's like y'all could have at least given Payano at least one more round, or one of y'all could have said it's 114, because he did a lot better than just 4 rounds to win in that particular fight. So you had that, and then you had the thing there with Luis Neri going against Aaron Alameda. I wanted to see what Luis Neri could do there with Eddie Reynoso as his trainer. Like Alameda was doing very well in the first half of that particular fight. It was just that Luis Neri turned it up on the second half of that fight in order for him to, get that decision win to win and what is the vacant WBC title there. So he'll end up facing Daniel Rahman. And then the winner of that will face Ray Vargas once he fully recovers from injury. So those were those 2 particular bouts. Anything from those 2, I just think that, Neri wasn't as impressive as, I thought he would have been. This is like coming off of him actually beating Payano in the last fight before moving up to super bantamweight to face Alameda. So what did you think about those 2 bouts?
I'll probably say more on it tomorrow. I'm starting to get a bit sleepy, but the one thing I can say is that the reason when he had success, Neri, it was when he jabbed, and it baffled me because he landed his right hand so easily. What he kept trying to land when he threw 1 or 2 jabs to get in and blind, whatever his name was, and then land that shot. He was doing some good boxing, like good moving, good evading. What's the other guy name? Alameda. Yeah, he was doing pretty good boxing. I think that, man, the jab is the most important shot, man. It's just, it just baffles me that he throwing hooks the whole time and thinking that they gonna land hooks and overhand rights and stuff. And that's why the dude with the jab who got to the punch first kept jabbing him in the eye, so.
Yeah, but Alameda was, fairly impressive there in those first few rounds. It looked like when the announcers were on this covering this fight, they didn't really expect Alameda to do what he was doing in those first few rounds. But Neri had to adjust a good little bit there, and then once he did make those adjustments, then he was able to turn it up there in that second half of the fight. And like I said, with Daniel Rahman, I felt like Daniel Rahman was going to go through, a decision against Juan Carlos Payano, but Payano to me was more impressive. He was one that started off fast. He was one that was more aggressive. Was landing combinations very well. Even with the clash of heads early, and him having I think it was like another welt in his eye, he was still kind of like throwing a lot of punches on Daniel Rahman until about the ninth, pretty much about the ninth or 10th round where his overall output diminished. So, with that being said, I guess that's what the judges were leaning towards with Daniel Rahman. So it'll be Daniel Rahman against Luis Neri later on down the line. So you had that in the first part of the pay-per-view. Jamal Charlo, Sergey Derevyanchenko. Jamal Charlo with the unanimous decision win, and I felt like he, executed very well in that particular fight against Derevyanchenko, and had Derevyanchenko pretty much have to think about either going into the inside or, moving laterally, because I thought that Derevyanchenko would kind of move better than he did in that fight. He was pretty much right in front of, Jamal Charlo's line of vision for the majority of that fight. And while he was able to work pretty well on the inside over the course of the fight, I just felt like, Jamal Charlo did what needed to be done in order to get that win, and was fairly impressive in that fight.
Yeah, definitely. He was definitely impressive. It would be nice to see him in some adversity, though, like real adversity. It's like he always in the lead in every fight, which is a testament to his skill. But I would want to see him in a fight. I mean, he was definitely in some adversity in the knockout that he got with the uppercut. He faced adversity there, but it'd be nice to see him face adversity where somebody got him, well, like his brother had to step back and take a different approach. Like it'd be nice to see that. I'm not taking away his win, because I think he did a great job, and he showed that he had a better win over this guy than everybody else did, which speaks to his skill. I just want to see him face some adversity and show people that he can step it past it, because that's what I saw in that fight. That I mean, he faced a little adversity, but not a lot. Like he had a couple like webs on his face, but outside of that, he didn't take a lot of damage. Like
right.
Good plan, good fight. You could tell who the better fighter of the two brothers. I'm not trying to pit them against each other, but I'm just saying you can tell who's the more composed and who's the better fighter.
Yeah.
It's just that the fight that was the main fight meant more in the sport of boxing.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, like you were saying, I mean, I agree with you. I've said this, for a while, that I felt like Jamal Charlo was the, better of the two brothers, better overall of the two brothers. And, his overall skill is pretty much, you can see the difference between those two. I felt like, with Jamal Charlo in this particular instance, it was like the first time that I kind of like seen him kind of like fight off a back foot instead of being aggressive and stepping forward in his shots, because he usually has some type of size advantage against his opponents, but against Rosario, he really didn't have that. So we kind of like fought off his back foot. But with Jamal Charlo, he was a sizably bigger person, but he kind of like shown that he could be patient. He could throw the jab very effectively, whether it's, for offense or for defense. And kind of like was, dealing with, what Sergey Derevyanchenko was doing on the inside, because that's where Derevyanchenko did his best work. We just had to, have some feints and move his head a little bit in order to get to the inside. But once he was able to do that, then he did his work on Jamal Charlo. But I just feel like Jamal Charlo is a better, overall fighter to me. I think that Jamel Charlo leaves himself open a good amount of times, but it's just that he has that power that people have to be wary of. And once he, is able to get his opponents with that power shot, then that's basically an equalizer right there. But that's why I got off of that. We also had Brandon Figueroa was able to get a stoppage win there. When he got that 10th round stoppage against Damian Vasquez. And then you have the John Rio Casimiro against Micah TKO stoppage in the 3rd round there. So, Rio Casimiro retained that WBO bantamweight belt. And you had the thing there with Brandon Figueroa winning that WBA super bantamweight title. So, good series of fights that were out there. Mike had to check out. Being that it is 2:00, so you pretty much had this main event thing end at about 1:30 a.m. So you had to start at about 7 p.m. Eastern time. Had the intermission there around 10:15, 10 o'clock, 10:15 or so. And then the next fight card started, and the main event pretty much was leaning towards around 12:50 a.m. Eastern time. So hopefully I will see good reviews of this pay-per-view. Hopefully we got a good amount of pay-per-view buys for it. But I will be on the lookout for any of these boxing columnists or journalists or whatever it is covering the sport that want to try to bash this pay-per-view. I will be looking out for that, because that shouldn't happen on any level, on any sense. I don't care what promotion puts on that pay-per-view or puts on that event. You don't, that's not what you do as someone that's supposed to be a journalist in boxing. But like I said, good overall card. We'll be able to talk about it a little bit more on the podcast. That should be coming up 7:30 p.m. Eastern time live. So we'll be live talking about all of those fights, plus the earlier fights that did take place. The main events there, you had the thing with Maris Brightus being able to get the decision win over Junior Dorticos. And you had that first round knockout by Josh Taylor over Apinan Kong Sung for him to retain those unified super lightweight titles. So we're going to be going over all of that in this fight, the fight analysis or fight reviews, I would say, in the podcast for 7:30 p.m. Eastern time there. So that's what we got here. Like I said, good overall card, and that is what. And like I said, we're going to be going over all of that later on. So, so that's the thing there. And let's see, going back here with these comments. So, like I said, it's about after 2 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm gonna close this out. We'll catch y'all later on. Get some rest. Big day in boxing. And I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.